Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Technique Tuesday. My name is Ali Board, and you are very welcome. Now, we have lots of audiences today. You might be watching me live via YouTube. You might be watching me via catch up on YouTube. Equally, you might be watching over on my blog, which I'll give you more information about in just a second. This is the Technique Tuesday broadcast for the month of April in 2023. And for April, our theme is wing and feather. And so all of my classes, workshops and tutorials are all based around that theme. We might be exploring birds, we might be exploring movement, we might be looking at the intricacies of how a bird is made up, eyes, beaks, all of that kind of thing. But today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. And today we're going to be talking about the artist as a collector. And I use the word collector very loosely because I probably mean hoarder, if I'm honest, but we'll talk more about that in just a second. What I'd like to do first is to go over where you can find the information, how you can get links to all of the equipment that I'm going to be using today, and a few requests, which is what I'm going to start with. Would you be kind enough to please subscribe to this channel on YouTube? There's a little red button and it's got probably a little bell on it or something like that, and it says subscribe. Please just click on that and be a subscriber. Why do I need you to do it? You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is click. And what that does is it helps me to build this channel, which means more tutorials are seen, which means that I am then able to provide you with more tuition for free. And because this broadcast is for free, one of the other things that you can do to really help me is to pop over to my social media, to pop over to the website, to keep those on your things that you like to go and check on a regular basis. And in the blog on the website, which again I'll show you in just a second, are some links to some equipment. Now those are affiliate links. So if you click on them, I do get a tiny few pence per sale, and that's what keeps these broadcasts free. So shall I show you where to go and where you can find the equipment today? So you need to pop over to the website. So that is www.learningtopaint.co.uk. Now yours might look a little bit different to this dynamic. If you are looking at this on a tablet or on a smartphone, you might not have all these words across the top. You might have three little bars. And so what you need to do is to click on that, and that is your menu. And you can see there very clearly it says blog. So you tap or you click on that part of the website, and that takes you over to a whole raft of things that you can read. And there you can see already Technique Tuesday for April is up. Let's give that a click and let's see where that takes us. Now what that does is it gives you a little bit of background information as to where you can find everything, where you can find out more information about some of my workshops. There's the photograph for inspiration. I'm going to show you more about that photograph in just a second. And here we have it, the equipment that I will use. Yeah, I'm quite likely to do that as well today. The equipment that I will use in my demonstration today. Now, it's an unusual one today because we're going to be talking about printmaking, one of the subjects that I just love to explore alongside of my painting. This is something that I absolutely adore to do. So there is the equipment list. And there is also a graphic, a feather graphic, which I'm going to be using today. The link is there to it so that you can download it yourself. And then just at the bottom, you can't see it at the moment because obviously I am in the throes of recording it. That is where you'll be able to watch this broadcast, just in case you're watching it live and you want to go and watch it again. And then there's a few bits of information. Next month, we are going to be looking at portraiture. I will tell you more about that later. And if you are over on my blog, it's always lovely to hear from you. Please do leave a comment. I would love to hear what you have to say about the demonstration. If you would like to see more of it, all that kind of stuff. So plenty there for you to enjoy, and all for free. Let's go back to me. Hello. So today we are going to be looking at a printmaking project. We're going to be looking at monoprinting, and I have lots and lots to explain to you. I have so much stuff around me, it's slightly unreal. I also have my little cheat cards here because I've got a lot to tell you. So please keep the chat going. If you are watching this live and you are watching me via YouTube, please keep that chat going. I can see that there's lots of lovely people. I want to say good morning to everybody who is in the room. Oh gosh, so many of you commenting. Who have I not said good morning to? Ali, Sheena, Trudy, Rabina, Jackie, Simone, Linda, the lovely Marjorams, Joe, Jennifer, good morning, and B too. Thank you ever so much for taking the time and trouble to tune in. And don't forget, you can carry on talking to each other in the comments. If you're watching this on catch up, you can still chat to me. I see all of them come up and I try my very best to reply to each one of them. Right, let's get rid of those cards and let's take you to the overhead camera because I've got lots of stuff to share with you today. But before we get into all of that, I wanted to share this with you. Now, the artist as collector. Like I say, that word collector used very loosely because we are hoarders by nature. Why are we hoarders? We're hoarders because things fascinate us and the variety of things fascinates us. And so feathers are a huge part of my collections that I have in the studio. I have rocks and pebbles and glass bottles and bits of fabric and obviously quite a lot of art materials. But feathers are definitely a thing for me. Now I am very fortunate, as you can see, there's a bit of a theme in these feathers, and that is chicken. Because if you follow me on social media, then you will know that I have my own little flock of my little backyard flock of hens. And so these are a collection of feathers from them. So I have the gorgeous Buffy, that's one of her feathers. Really tragic that I know where all of these feathers come from. That's from Dottie. But I have some more unusual ones too. There's a few that I have found in the garden. I'm pretty sure that that's a buzzard feather. And I have some pheasant feathers too. If you've known me for a long time, you'll know that actually my husband and I had our own pet pheasant, little Fezzle, for a long time. So I have this lovely assortment of feathers. I use them as inspiration. They are displayed. I mean, I have lots of pots, but this pot is very dear to my heart. This was made by my lovely ceramicist friend, Deborah. And so I keep them in this pot and it's just rather lovely. I've collected them all myself and it's a thing of beauty. I'm not entirely convinced that I would want to paint that. However, they are going to be useful for today's demonstration because they're going to be a source of inspiration. So I'm going to pop that to one side. I have picked some out ready for us. I have little ones. When they go into molt, they tend to shed much smaller feathers that you wouldn't necessarily see. And I've got some beautiful ones here from Buffy. Let's just pull a few out. I mean, look at this. Isn't that beautiful? There's one of her wing feathers. Let's pull one of Fezzle's out. Fezzle's sadly no longer with us, but it's a lovely memory to have of her, to have these feathers. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Let's pull a third one out because otherwise you know that will make my head hurt. Now whose is this? This has got to be one of my bluebells. So this could be Belle, and it might have been Blue, who was again sadly no longer with us, but we'll keep those three out and we'll see what we can do with those. Let's pop those to one side. But before I do that, let's introduce you to some of the equipment that we're going to be using today. Now, the equipment list is kind of much bigger and better explained with links over on the blog. So do go and have a look at that after this broadcast, or if you're watching on catch up, then stick me on pause and go and have a look at that. Here's the kind of crux of what we're going to be using today. I've got a piece of scrap cardboard just to protect my workspace. I'm going to be needing some of that cardboard later on too. Bits of feather everywhere already. I have some rollers. Now these are rubber rollers. There's two kinds here. Now I haven't put the link to this one because I'm struggling to find it anywhere on the internet. I just wanted to show you this because SD, who are the company whose rollers that I use, because they're very affordable, they've started doing both hard rollers and soft rollers too. And I found this at the weekend on my travels. So I haven't really experimented with this one yet. I've just got it there to show you. I'm going to pop that one to one side. I'm going to say I pop it to one side. I'm running out of space very quickly at the moment. So these are hard rollers. They're brilliant for all sorts of things, not only for printmaking but for painting too. They have a little prop on the back, so try to get out of the habit of putting your roller that way down when you're in between colours. Turn it over and rest it on its back, and that way your work space doesn't get dirty, and it doesn't do rollers an awful lot of good to sit in paint, particularly if you're using oil-based paint. So try to get out of the habit of putting them that way down, flip them over and put them on the back, and then you won't get paint everywhere. I've just got a Diddy one here. This is probably the one I'm going to be using, but I've pulled my slightly longer one out as well, just because, you know me, I get carried away by stuff. The paints that I'm going to be using today, for the most part, I'm going to be using the De La Rowney Acrylic System 3 paints. Now, if you are an acrylic painter, you've probably got these anyway. Very popular brand of acrylic paint. I find that they work really well on the gelatin plate. There are a few others that I use as well. Sometimes I use the System 3 fluid paints because they go on and they become the right consistency really quickly. But rather than investing in new paints or investing in proper printmaking inks, then you can use your System 3 acrylics and they work very well. I've got a bit of a thing about fluorescent colours at the moment. I don't know what it is, and I've just fancied using them. So this is where I'm going to start today. But down to my right, I have a whole box of paints that I'm going to be pulling from as we go through the demonstration today. Now these, there's other ways that you can do this. You could have a wet rag. I tend to use these kind of wipes because it cleans up very quickly. It certainly cleans up very quickly in terms of doing a demonstration and us recording it. But if you can, get the biodegradable ones. These are bamboo, and that way you're not adding to landfill. And then I have a selection of papers here. I'll come to the plate in just a second. You can use pretty much anything on your gelatin plate, but they are all going to give you a slightly different finish. Now I've put the links to as many as I can over on the blog, but let's just show you some of the things that we're going to be working with today. I have, let's get them in order. This is normal, bog standard, no frills copier paper. This is 100 grams, slightly heavier, just because I don't like 80 gram for doing my printing out on. So I tend to have 100 gram, very white, so the colours are going to show up really quite clearly on this. They, all of this, nearly all of this was an A4 sheet. I've just torn it in two because I've got a smaller gelatin plate. So I've got copier paper. I have hemp paper. Now this is, let me just turn around and find the pad. This is made by Hahnemuller. This is a pad and it's meant for sketching. It's 80 GSM, but it's brilliant for printmaking because it is slightly softer than you might expect. And that means it's very pliable on the plate. And with some of the techniques that I'm going to show you today, you might want it to be that little bit more pliable. So that's my hemp paper. Now I've also got this. Now you're not you're not likely to have this. This I found in my box of scrap paper, and it was an experiment that I did a long time ago. I am thinking about turning this into a tutorial or maybe into a Technique Tuesday for how I created this, which was to boil this watercolour paper, and it is watercolour paper with some leaves. I'm not going to go into that process now, but it was in my box of scrap. And it is watercolour paper. It's not very expensive watercolour paper. It's very kind of cheap watercolour paper. I was doing a test for something else and I pulled this out because I thought it might be interesting to print on today. We have some Cardi paper. Now this is tinted Cardi, which they have started to produce. Again, a lovely soft paper, got quite an interesting texture. I've never used this in my gelatin plate experiments, so this is going to be new for me. You can see that it's got a lovely decal edge around it. Again, I've torn it in two so that I get two pieces out of it. And I have some music manuscript paper as well. Now please, please, please triple check the copyright. Again, that's not something I'm going to go into today, but triple check that this can be used, because if you produced a print and then wanted to frame it or turn it into cards or any of those kind of things, you need to be aware of the copyright on this. Now, if I'd have been sensible, I'd have probably torn it so that the music was the right way up. But I found this in my scrap box, tore it in two just because I thought it would be interesting to experiment with. So I got all those bits of paper on. And you might be thinking to yourself, wow, that's a lot of paper, Ali. Are you sure we're going to pull those prints? Yes, we certainly are. We're going to be doing a lot of experimenting. So not only do you need lots of space, far more space than I have given myself today, but you'd probably benefit from a washing line as well. So have a bit of string up, peg out your pieces as you do them, or have a great big table so that you can lay them out to dry. I have nothing but the floor around me today, so you're just going to have to be a little bit patient with me whilst I turn my chair around, lay things on the floor, turn it back around to pick them up, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, now let's get to the gelatin plates. They tend to come in clamshell packs like this. I keep the packaging, not only because I don't particularly want to stick it into landfill, but also because it keeps my plate nice and safe. As you can see, this is very well used. This is one of my favourite sizes of plate. This is A5 in size. It's a very useful plate so that it's kind of not all getting out of control. And most of the time they come with 1 or 2 sheets of plastic, front and back, to keep this plate nice and moist. And here it is. You can see that it's grubby, it's dirty, it's been tinted by many years of me using acrylic paints on it, but it's still absolutely fine. Now it's called gelatin plate because it used to be something that you'd have to make out of gelatin. Now you don't need to do that. What you will find is if you purchase one of these, they're actually made out of a synthetic product. And it smells, I actually think, this is one of the more weirder things, I think it smells rather lovely. It smells like kind of baby powder, baby lotion, that kind of thing. It's got a quite nice, not a chemical smell to it. And there you can see it's very pliable. It stays in this consistency as long as you don't do anything daft with it, as long as you don't leave it out in the sunlight, as long as you keep it kind of in the plastic front and back. Just take care of it. I mean, I have to say I'm horrible to mine. I don't clean mine up as well as I possibly could do, but then I get all creative. Now I'm putting it onto this bit of cardboard so that it doesn't slip. I can move this piece of cardboard to suit how I want to roll it, all of that kind of stuff. So I think that's the basics of the equipment. There's going to be other things that I'm going to introduce to you as we go along. But let's start you off with what's known as a basic pull. So a pull is where you have inked up your plate, you lay your piece of paper on the top and then you pull it away. And this surface is now your painting surface. So this is where you create your colour or your texture or all of those kind of things. And we are going to be doing lots of experimenting with those kind of things using our theme of feathers. So I have a stencil technique to show you. I have a stamp technique to show you, and I have an actual feather technique to show you too. So strap yourselves in, make yourselves a cup of coffee, put the kettle on, have me in the background, and I will show you how you can have enormous amounts of fun with this. Good morning to anybody who has just joined me live, by the way. So here's my plate. Let's start off with a good old plain bit of copier paper. Let's have that ready just at the top. And then the other thing I want to do is I want to set up a little bit of a workspace. So I'm going to pull myself a wipe here. I'm going to put it to one side of me. That way, if anything needs clearing up, particularly my rollers, I'll be able to do it nice and quickly. So let's give these tubes of paint a quick shake. And let's start off with this amazing fluorescent pink. Now, this is the way that I like to apply it. You are going to need to experiment with the quantity of paint that you lay down onto your plate. That is going to be part of your learning process. You will find it's better to have too much paint and to take some of it away than to have too little. And the first thing I'm going to do is very lightly run my roller backwards and forwards over this paint to get it to start to adhere onto the surface. So let's get that on. Now that, as you can see, let's tip it up and turn it in the light, looks quite sticky. It'd be interesting to take a pull from it right now, but I'm going to see if I can refine it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my baby wipe over here. I need some kitchen roll as well, which I have. Let's put a bit of kitchen roll down at the bottom so I don't drag my sleeves in it as well. And then let's refine this paint. Now, it's quite tempting to want to push very hard on your plate, but let's show you what happens if you push too hard with the roller. If you push too hard with the roller, you get lines in it. You get kind of edges of where the roller was. So you want to be kind to it and you want to skid it backwards and forwards. Now I've got a little bit too much paint going on here, but that's okay. You can also clean up the edges of your plate with your finger if you wish to. So let's just see how that comes out. Oh, already got paint on my piece of paper, look at that. So we pop the piece of paper down. There's lots of discussions to be had with regard to registering for getting your print in exactly the same place each time. Those are not discussions that I'm going to have today. We're just going to do a basic overview of this. Now you can use your fingers to burnish it. You can also use one of these, which is has like a pad of felt on it, has a wooden handle, and you can use that to burnish it down too. The links to all of this stuff are on the blog. So we can burnish that down, and then here is the pull. You're pulling this away, and there you have the most basic version of a gelatin plate pull that you can have. So we need to set this aside. It's got this sort of water theme. I think it's to do with the marks. But you can see there's quite a lot of paint on there. Now, if I'm quick and I go for something a little bit softer, like the hemp paper, for example, I might be able to pull what's known as a ghost print. And that is the type of print where it's kind of what's left behind. And you will need extra pressure for this one. So let's pull this away, and then you get a sort of an interesting ghostly kind of pattern going on. None of these, there's no kind of superiority between these two things. One is not better than the other. They are all just different. What you will need is a lot of them to be able to layer up your designs. This is not something that you get your design down in one go. Yes, very Monet. Very Monet, Barbara. This is something that you're going to want to layer up and layer up and layer up. Now, let's pop those in front and let's clean this plate up. So you can do that by spraying it with a spray bottle and using kitchen roll, or you can do this version with your wipes, which is, to me, the fastest way of doing it. You just need to be careful and to make sure that you dry the plate off afterwards. Otherwise your paint is going to skid and skip and do other things. So let's just do a couple more in some basic pools in some different colours. What we got down here? We've got fluorescent green and gold. I literally just pulled those out of the box straight away. So who knows how these are going to look together. Let's just clean this roller off a little better. There we go. Surprising how much paint goes onto this roller. This is why you need a whole collection of, look at this already, a massive mess. A whole collection of baby wipes and kitchen roll, all those kind of things. Right, let's go for the fluorescent green. Let's put slightly less paint on it this time. I don't think we needed as much. And let's go for the gold. This is going to be interesting. These are not colours that I normally use. So it's going to make it, got a bit of medium coming out in there. Paint's just separated, that's all that's happened. That's better. And there, and there, and there. Okay, lid on. I'm going to create a little pile of old wipes down on the floor. Ooh, look at that green. How delicious is that? I'm very excited about that. Now I've got a bit of acrylic medium in the gold, which has kind of created a gap, which I'm not disliking, like a sort of a blank space almost. Let's get rid of, I'm not wild about those dollop marks showing, so let's push a bit harder and we can get rid of those. That's better. And then we've got more gold at the bottom. Let's get rid of some of this excess colour down here. Interesting. Right, what else have we got? As we have that kind of nice pale green cardi paper, let's get that down on here and see what we get. Where's my burnisher? Down there. There we go. And let's pull this away. Ooh, interesting. Got a bit of excess colour. I should have wiped the edges of my plate, but look at that green. Isn't that fabulous? And we've still got quite a bit going on down here. So let's try a bit of the music manuscript paper. I think this is from Carmen, if you're interested. Let's get that down, push that on, use our burnisher down here, and then let's see what we've got. Ooh, okay, sort of, yeah, an interesting, very bright ghost print. So I've got them all building up at the top. Let's help ourselves to another wipe, and let's get this all cleaned up. Now, that is, like I said, the most basic version of how to use a plate. And whilst they're not the most exciting to look at, it is useful to understand the amount of paint that you need on your surface and get used to things like how your roller, how your brayer works, how much pressure you need to apply, all of those types of things. So that is where I would recommend you start. Also, because of the projects that I'm about to share with you, it's useful to have some paper with some basic colours already laid down for when we start layering it up in a minute. I'm just cleaning that off because I've got something else to do. Right, in the bin, or on the floor, as it would seem. And I'm going to move this temporarily because I'm going to cut a stencil. Now I have lots of stencils here, which I use for my, well, I use in my paintings. If you've watched any Technique Tuesdays before, you will know that I like to do a lifting out with them, all sorts of interesting things. But as we are using feathers as our theme today, I thought we would have a look at how to cut our own stencil. Oh, excuse me. So I'm going to put my plate to one side and I'm going to introduce this to you. So this is the graphic that you will find over on the blog. Don't forget that the blog can be found at www.learningtopaint.co.uk, and you want to go for the Technique Tuesday that was for April. That will give you all the links to the materials, and it will give you the link to this graphic too. I have made it smaller and I've got 4 of them on here, but you could have it much larger, much smaller, however you want to do this. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this up over here. I think I just want one. Let's just go for one of these over here. So we've got just one graphic. And this is a piece of acetate. Now you can use, managed to get paint on it already. You can use any kind of acetate. You could even upcycle some plastic from some food packaging or similar. What you're after is just basically a piece of plastic, a sheet of plastic. I'm making a right old mess here, aren't I? A sheet of plastic which you can then cut your stencil from. Now it doesn't have to be the right way round or the wrong way round or anything like that. It just needs to be a piece of plastic. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this in half so that I'm not wasting too much of it. Let's give a rough guide for my scissors. And cutting all the way down the centre. I've got a lovely sharp pair of scissors here that I tend to keep for my most important craft projects. Stick that to one side. That's going to be useful for another project. And let's line this up so it's in the middle or thereabouts of our piece of acetate. Now you could stick this down, could use a little bit of framer's tape at the top to make sure that it's not going anywhere. Actually static is keeping it there for me. And I have a Sharpie, a permanent marker that is going to be able to be used on this acetate to draw it out nice and easily. So you're going around the edge of, yeah, that'll be right, around the edge of the feather. You will do this much more carefully than I am going to. I am rattling through it for the purposes of this demonstration, but you can do it in the calm and the cool and the quiet of your own workspace. Let's get that line up there. Ooh, that's difficult to do and talk at the same time. Let's go up the middle here, all the way to the top. And then when we take it away, we should have, you can just about see that in the camera, we have our line drawing all ready to go. Now, you're going to need to use a scalpel for this. I have 2 scalpels that I use. I have a metal bladed scalpel and I have a ceramic bladed scalpel. Both will do the job for this. I'm using my metal bladed scalpel today because cutting out with acetate I find easier with a metal bladed. Cutting paper or foam or other things out I find using the ceramic easier. So I'm going to, let's start with the most complicated bit. Now, as I say, this is going to need a little bit of kind of cool, calm and quiet. So you're going to have to excuse me if this doesn't quite go to plan, which it's not going to, because the blade has decided it doesn't want to go all the way through the plastic, which is really unhelpful when you're doing a broadcast. There we go, that's better. I wasn't pressing hard enough. So let's make our way. I'm trying not to get my head in shot as well, which is easier said than done. Let's see if we can cut out this shape. If you're not into creating your own stencils, then of course there will be feather stencils that you will be able to buy, I am sure. Let's see how we're going with that. Okay, that's coming away. That's all good. Now this is your opportunity, if you are watching me live, to get any questions you might have into the chat, because it's going to take me just a couple of minutes to get this stencil cut out. So you stick your questions into the chat I will hopefully see them popping up, and then I can answer them for you. So whilst you do that, I'm going to work on this stencil. Make sure, let's see how it's going. There's a few little knotty bits going on. So don't forget that for me to be able to see the questions, they need to be in the live chat, not in the comments. If you're watching this on catch up, then do leave them in the comments section. We've got a little live chat window going on, and so hopefully I'll be able to see them pop up. Now Trudy has asked a question. Trudy is saying, talking of stencils, where could I find some of those fabulous square stencils you showed earlier? Trudy, I am glad you asked. If you go over to my blog on the www.learningtopaint.co.uk website, and you find that blog page and you find the Technique Tuesday blog, I have put links to everything so that you don't need to be scrolling through the internet to try to find it all. They are all there for the taking. I got mine on Amazon, and that is the link that I have posted, but that isn't the only place. There's plenty of craft places that will be able to help you with that. I'm just feeling my way around to see what hasn't cut. This is quite I don't know why I decided to do this as a live broadcast, has to be said. But it's all good fun, and I'm hoping interesting for you to watch. Let's get that in there, get that in there. And let's get this last bit, this last cut. I probably should have done first, but I didn't. So let's get that in. Trudy is saying many thanks, so looks like I've answered her question for her. Right, let's see where we are with this. You can get acetate, or you could find yourself some acetate that isn't clear, and therefore is that little bit easier to see when you're doing something like this. The problem with using acetate that isn't clear is that it's very difficult to see then when you lay it down on top of your jelly plate. You'll soon see what I'm talking about in just a second. What's going on down here? Let's see what's... it's coming away. It's all good. It's all good. Let's get that bit out. Let's get this bottom bit out. Why is that not coming away, Ali? That's not coming away because for some reason it doesn't like that cut. That's better. And then we've got this last one coming out. Oh, lots of people were wondering where to get the stencils from, so that's good. And then so we've just got this last little bit, this last little knotty bit in here. Anne is saying, the demos I've seen on gel plates use the brayer rather than the burnisher for doing the transfer. Is there any difference, and is one technique better than the other? Good question. So what Anne is referring to is when I've used my burnisher on the back of the paper, she is saying that she has used the brayer. The brayer is fine, Anne, but the reason I don't like it and the reason I don't use it is because I am a bit heavy-handed with it, and if you push too hard with this, then the danger is that you put two impressions either side of your roller on the back of the paper, whereas that's next to impossible to achieve with that because the pressure is spread over this felt pad. And so I think that's better. It's the same reason why I don't use my fingers, because if you're not careful, you actually get finger marks transferred into the underside of it. So that is why I use that. You can use the back of a spoon as well. I have seen that done. So there is our stencil. We've also got a positive version of it as well in one piece, which I didn't intend on using, but I'm now thinking that I might. So let's stick those to one side. Let's get our jelly plate back in, and let's have a think about some other colours that we might want to introduce. So what have we got? We've got our pinks and our blues, which are starting to dry really nicely now. I think we possibly want something darker. Let's break the habit of a lifetime and go for purple. Violet, deep violet in system 3. So let's get this on, get a bit of colour down, and let's roller this on. Now the darker colours I think work much better on the gelatin plate than the paler colours, because it's harder to see where you've kind of made any extra pressure marks, all of that kind of stuff. I think they go on beautifully, but of course you can't work in dark colours all the time. So let's get that down. Let's do the version that I had every intention of doing right from the get-go, which was this version of things. So I'm going to lay my stencil on like that. And then let's take the first one that we did. So you're using, this is pretty much dried now. You can let yours dry for a lot longer. And then again, you could register it if you wanted to, or you could just shove it on. And then let's get that burnisher in. And you need to hold it down because it will slip on top of the acetate. Let's get that down. Let's just have a look and see how it's going. Sometimes, I know I've just said to Anne that I don't use my fingers, but sometimes you do need to sort of push with your fingers. And then let's pull that away. Ta-da! Look at that. Lovely, easy to do. So any stencils that you use, you can create some really interesting effects on. I'm going to pop that to one side. Now I've got a couple of interesting things going on. So I've got two things that I could take a print from. I've got the ghost version on my gelatin plate, and I have got this stencil too. So let's, before that dries, let's whack that on there, and let's start a new one actually. Oh, things dropping all over the floor. Let's see if we can pull that ghost print from there. So we'll use that burnisher on there. So nice and easy to do. Particularly got kind of all sorts of ways that you could be creative with it in terms of stencil. You can use bubble wrap. You can do, no, that I was not quick enough. Look at that, interesting. So that will need to be cleaned. What I will do is I will take a wipe and I will place that on top of there just so that that starts working. And let's see if I can get a print off of here. It might have dried because I've been talking and doing things at the same time. Let's flip it over and see what happens. Now, it wasn't quick enough with that either. Interesting. Now, you're going to need to wash that. I don't have time in this broadcast to clean that up, but it's plastic. It will come off of it with a little bit of elbow grease later on. But that worked a treat, didn't it? Look at that. So lovely to do. Oh, now I'm getting a ghost print through my... Oh, look! Interesting. Didn't expect that to happen. I may have to just allow that to dry. Pop that up there and allow it to dry. Let's clean it off as I intended. So that is your stencil technique. I'm going to very quickly show you how you can also use that technique with some ready-made stencils. Let's just find my kitchen roll and we'll very quickly ink up the plate. Let's put that to one side. Let's put that over there, and then let's choose one of these. Let's choose just a kind of random pattern. Oh, I'm a lover of the spots. What else have we got going on here? Snowflakes, not very seasonal. Let's go for the spots because I love a spot. And then let's get that in. And let's pick another colour. Let's go for silver this time. And we'll layer this up over the top of some of the other thing. So this is how you can use a ready-made stencil. Got a bit of purple on it, but never mind. So again, rolling it out, leaving quite no pressure whatsoever. I'm allowing the roller to skim backwards and forwards. The minute that I press, that's the minute that I get patterns in the plate that I don't necessarily want. Now, because I didn't clean my roller, I now have a sort of metallic violet, which I'm not disliking, it has to be said. So Hilary is saying, a workshop I went to placed another layer of paint on top of the ghost print left on the plate and another image including the one left on the plate emerged. Yes, there's so many versions of this that you can do, Hilary. It's I have not enough hours in the day to tell you all about them. So let's get that on. Let's use one of our I'm going to have a, oh, actually what we could do is play about with this way of doing it so that we don't use all of the plate. That's quite an interesting part of it. Get some fabulous textures build up really quickly. Let's also just pull some of the bottom part of this away. You can use some of your prints as just kind of conduits for other things, but if we take that, I'm not wild about that line being on it, but we can certainly layer this up, getting that on, and then let's pull that and see what we get. So like I said, even prints that are slightly duds, even ones where you think, oh, that hasn't really done anything, you can start to layer up and you get some interesting marks on them. So we already have quite an interesting selection of textures going on. Okay, right, I'm going to do this, give this a good old clean up, and then we're going to talk about how you could possibly make your own stamp for a gelatin plate as well. Now stick with me, we are going to be going over an hour today on this project just because there is so much to share with you. But stick with me if you're watching this live, stick me on pause if you're watching on catch up, and I promise you all the exciting techniques are still to come. So over here, we're just giving this a really rubbish clean up. And that is going to go in the sink for later. Now, again, going to throw this to one side over there, and I'm going to show you some of this stuff. Now, this is actually a foam that I use for a different type of printmaking, but it's called Safe Print, and the idea of it is that you use an old biro to draw into it, and then you take a plate off that, like a kind of very cheap version of etching. But today I'm going to use this for a different reason. And what I'm going to use this for, I'm going to need my, actually let's do it this way. So I'm going to take my Safe Print, I'm going to try to use it as carefully as I can so I don't waste it, and I'm going to create a foam pad out of it. So to do that, I'm going to take my line drawing and a biro. You will find that it dents very easily. So I can draw over this design. In actual fact, to make it slightly easier for myself, what I'm going to do is join it up. I don't need it to act like a stencil, I just need it to look like a feather. And once again, because I'm doing this for a live broadcast, I'm rushing, and you will take much more time and care and attention over it. And then can you see, if I can get that ever so slightly, you can see that it's indented. I can see it really clearly, but you might not be able to see it for the camera. And so I'm going to use my ceramic blade for this, because it cuts through this stuff so easily. And then I'm going to use this to cut out a foam version of my feather. Now this is going to be a lot faster, hopefully, she says, when she can see it more clearly. And where are we going with this? Let's go over here. You can, this sort of stuff, you can use neoprene for this as well. That works really well for making your own stencil. Let's break some of this. This is not obsolete. Keep this in your scrap. You can use this for making a smaller version. Let's cut into there and there. Bringing this around. We just want a sort of rough feather, don't we? To go around the top. Break that away so you can see it coming together. This is such a quick project. Great project to be not using a knife necessarily, but a great way of working with any small people in your life. My great nieces and nephews love this kind of thing. And so we'll come over here. Let's cut that away. I don't necessarily need all these little intricate bits, but we might as well put some of them in. Come over here. On a ceramic blade as well, you'll find that foam can dull a metal blade really quite quickly, but the ceramic blades just tend to last that little bit longer. So there we have our foam version of our feather. Let's put the guard back on that before I cut myself. Let's get rid of these to the floor where I can clear up later. What I might try and do actually is show you a picture of what the floor looks like afterwards. Now, what do I need now? I need a bit of old card. So let's take a bit of old card. You just want a base for your stamp, really. Let's just cut a bit out. But it means that rather than having to go and find the stamps that you want, and stamps can sometimes be really expensive, so you can make your own and you can have exactly the design that you want. Now, this is the glue that I'm using to attach the foam to my card for no other reason than it does dry really quickly. And I obviously needed to for the purposes of this demonstration. And it also has a beautifully fine nozzle on it. So I can get glue on the back of my stamp really quickly. Let's stick the lid on that. And let's get it roughly in the middle and stuck down. I don't want to press too hard because obviously I don't want to crush the foam. If you're using neoprene, that does last a little bit longer, but it's just a bit more expensive. So now we have a stamp. Now what we're going to do is we're going to play about with the background by using this stamp pressed into various colours. Now, what have we got so far? We've got a dark one going on there, which I think I want to keep that for something else. We could play about with this one, and we could definitely play about with this one, couldn't we? So let's go for one of my favourite colours in all makes a paint, acrylic, watercolour and pencil and whatever it is I'm using. This is Prussian blue, as you can see. I have a much bigger tube of this because I get through it quite quickly. So let's get some Prussian blue onto our plate and get our roller involved, and you will start to, when you've had a play with this, if you're thinking of having a go, you will find that some colours work differently to others. Prussian blue works very, very differently. It seems to roll out smoother onto a plate. And you'll notice if you watch anybody else on YouTube or Instagram or wherever you go for your inspiration, then you'll notice that people use Prussian blue quite a lot for that too. So let's take our stamp and let's mess about with this, shall we? So let's lay it into the plate and pull it away and lay it into the plate. So you're getting some interesting, now you could use that as well, don't forget, you could then use that to stamp elsewhere, but for the purposes of today, we're just messing around with this and seeing what we get. I'm going to stop there, I think, and then I'm going to pop this one back over the top. I'm going to try and register it myself, and let's burnish this down. and let's see what we get. So what we've got are some interesting kind of ghostly feather shapes going on there. Still some stuff going on. Let's see if we can quickly pick that up too. Now what you can also do to improve the success of your pull is what you can do is leave that on the plate for a little bit longer so that the paint is starting to dry. And of course what that means is that when you pull that piece of paper away, you're taking off quite a lot of paint from the surface. So actually, because this is quite thin, oh, this is dried, and now I've got to be very careful that I don't tear this. Oh, come away, come away, come away. But what I've got, look at that. Some interesting feather shapes occurring. I like that one, especially with that bit of metallic going on as well. That's really, really cool. Really cool. Liking that. So we've got this, now we've got this sort of interesting selection of things going on, haven't we? And these would be great, wouldn't they, for collage or for all sorts of things. I don't think, oh, that might still be wet. Let's see if that's still wet. I haven't got a spritz bottle around. Let's just see if that does. Again, I can't press too hard because I don't want to crush the foam. Ooh, look at that. Awesome. So there's so many uses for this, and we're starting to get some interesting things occur, aren't we? But there was one more technique that I wanted to show you. Now I have not, I promise you, I have not ever tried this. This will be the first time that I've ever tried it. And of course, you know me, I like to put myself under extra pressure. And so I'm going to do it for a live broadcast. And that is to use an actual feather. Now I've seen this demonstrated in lots of places, but like I said, I've never had a go at it myself. But come along with me for the ride and we'll see what happens, shall we? So let's clean that off. And actually for this, I'm going to continue to use that Prussian blue because I think the Prussian blue is where I'm going to get the most success out of it. So I'm going to make sure this is super, super clean. And I'm going to clean this off. And I'm going to get everything ready. Before I ink it up, I'm going to get everything ready. So I knocked my feathers on the floor. So let's go back and pick those up. So I've got a Fezzle feather, I've got a Buffle feather, and I've got a Bell feather. It's going to be interesting to see which one of these works. I'm having a look at them. I'm going to, I think, use Fezz's feather, or I might use combinations of them, just because it's nice and flat. You can flatten them out in a flower press. Oh, that one works quite well, actually. Oh, do you know what? Maybe I'll use all of them. And for this, I'm going to have, now stick with me on this, I'm going to have tissue paper. Now I've got 3 different kinds of tissue paper here. One of them is the one I'm going to use, but you might not have it. So I have silk tissue, which is the one with all the fibres in it, which is quite interesting for a collage material. Then I have what's called wet strength tissue. Now it's quite important that you use wet strength tissue as opposed to ordinary tissue paper, because wet strength tissue paper is the type that florists use. It's designed to get wet without it falling apart. And if you use ordinary tissue on a plate that has this kind of strength when you're trying to pull it away, chances are you'll tear it. So wet strength tissue. But this is what I'm going to use for mine. I'm going to use some old dressmaking patterns because I saw this on an interesting video that I was watching where actually the artist was using these for collage, and I thought, oh, this will be really good because this is quite tough tissue paper. So what I need to do is cut it down a little bit. So if you've got some old dressmaking patterns that you have no intention of using ever again, then this might be a way of creating them into a craft project. And I just thought it was quite a fascinating upcycling. You know me and my upcycling and things having more than one use. So I've got a bit of dressmaking tissue there. And I'm going to have a bit of the... have I got any hemp paper left? I'm having a sift through. And I haven't even... actually, maybe we'll use this. I don't know that it's going to work, but maybe we'll use this because I haven't had a chance to use that yet. So I've got that ready. I've got that ready. What else do I need? I need to ink this up. Lots of people on the chat are sharing their experiments that they have done themselves. So thank you for that. Always good. So let's go for it, shall we? We're going to ink this plate up. I might not have put enough paint down, but we will see. Sometimes it's quite tricky to tell whether you've got enough paint on. It's more of a feel thing than I can describe. Yeah, I'm not entirely convinced that I've got enough, but we'll go with it anyway. And if it doesn't work, we'll have another stab. How are we doing for time? Stick with me because I am nearly there. Trying to get this in an hour is always a bit of a challenge, and I never quite succeed because I have a lot of stuff I want to share with you. So let's pop these feathers down. It doesn't really matter, I don't think, which way they go down, but I want them on the plate. So let's get them in there. I know it seems like a waste of the feathers, but obviously I have quite a lot. It's not like I don't have feathers. And, you know, what's the point of having them in a collection if you're not going to use them for some sort of inspiration? Those are very bendy. Oh, I'm not sure that this is going to work. Never mind. Now, I'm going to lay my bit of dressmaking tissue down over the top. Oh, let's try and trap those. And I have to use my fingers this time because I need the tissue to work its way into the gaps around the feather. So we'll get that on. I can't hang about with this because all of the time that I'm talking, it's drying. And then let's take that pull. Oh, look. That is very cool. How cool is that? That's awesome. And then let's remove the feathers from the plate on there. And then, oh, I got a bit of feather stuck behind. And then let's use this bit of watercolour paper. I hope that this isn't too heavy. And we'll pick up the print. So what I might do, let's flip it over and see if it's working. No, it's not working. Right, very quickly then, let's choose a bit of silk tissue. See if I can get this off the surface. Again, it might have dried. I might have missed my opportunity to pull this away, or I might not have had enough ink. No, I haven't. So what I'm going to do, stick with me. I'm going to start again and see if we can. I'm going to put some extra paint down this time and see if we can work a little bit faster. Now I know that if I was using a proper printmaking ink that had what's called an open time, then I would be fairly sure of getting that print off of it because it would stay stickier for longer. That is the issue, because I'm working under so many lights. It's just not coming away. So I need another bit of tissue and I need, let's have those things ready. So let's try this again. So we got a buffle feather. We've got a bell feather and we've got our fezzle feather and oh, wrong way around. Push those down, get the ink. Oh, it's coming through as well. Maybe it's too much ink this time. Just goes to prove, doesn't it, that you need to experiment and you need to make sure that all of the conditions are right for what it is that you're trying to achieve. So let's get this one off. A very strong silhouette this time, but I don't want to hang around. Ooh. What I want to do is to get this paper straight onto my plate and let's see what we've got. I have a feeling I'm going to tint my burnisher. But that's all right. But honestly, so much fun. So much fun to get this. Yeah, here we go. To get this pulled away. And then you have this rather beautiful, even more like a cyanotype style of print that has pulled away. You've even got a bit of ghosting going on. You could even take prints from the back, look at the state of me, of your feathers if you wanted to. So in a short space of time, and that's what's so lovely about this, is you end up with some fascinating selection of prints that you can layer up and build on. I'm just trying to get them all out for you. So you've got where we used the actual feathers, you've got where we used a baby wipe on the surface, you've got our stamp that we used to interfere with things, we've got our stencil, all sorts of stuff going on. And actually some of these things in isolation, if you took little bits of them, how delicious are they? Just to take small sections to layer them up. Isn't that fascinating? All sorts of stuff, just using a very simple feather as our inspiration. I do love that. That's my favourite thing that I've created in a long time. Think how lovely that would be if you worked back into it or worked back over the top of it with your paints. Now, before we go, what I did want to show you as well was the fact that you don't have to have A-size plates. There's lots of plates that you can get out there. These ones particularly fun. So we've got a little triangular and the circle one I use quite a bit actually. And a tiny little square one. You can see I've used that a lot. Square is a rather nice format for gelatin plates. Very pleasing. So you can get square versions of them too. You get some interesting hexagonal shapes and all sorts of things going on with those. So you don't have to stick to just an A-size plate. You can get a variety of different shapes. Ooh, that was too much fun. I literally in my happy place. Look at the state of me. And there's stuff I'm gonna take a photograph when the broadcast is over, and I'm gonna post it on my social media so that you can see all the fallout of what happened during that broadcast. Now, if you do fancy following me, yeah, Hilary is saying I could spend all day having a play. Now, don't disappear on me yet. If you want to find me anywhere on the internet, then this is what you search for, at Ali Board Artist. You will find me on this channel, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, and it will lead you all to the Learning to Paint website. Let's take you back over to that website because I want to remind you of where all of those links to all of the material are. So you will go to www.learningtopaint.co.uk, and this is what you will see when you get to there. You might see a slightly different menu. You might have lines instead of these words, but whatever you do, you find the blog and you navigate your way to Technique Tuesday for April. And then it gives you a little bit of background. It gives you the photograph of my beautiful feathers for inspiration. And there is all the equipment, every single thing that I used today. Some of the things are in my own collection, but I'm sure that you can find them, including that kind of Baron, that burnisher. You've got links there. You've got links to the rollers. You've got links to the actual plates themselves and to the paint too. So lots and lots and lots for you to enjoy. There is the graphic that I used for both the stencil and for the foam stamp. There's a link so that you can download it all for free, and then that is where you'll be able to watch the broadcast again. So plenty for you to enjoy in terms of where you can go to find things, and of course all the other Technique Tuesdays are on there too, which brings me, I've got to go back to my cheat sheets. The next Technique Tuesday I will be back in the same place on the 9th of May with the theme portraiture. where I'm going to be looking at silhouettes, so more of a painterly style of things. If you're watching this on catch up, that might already be there for you to go and find. I'm going to be working on a very dark surface and looking at the highlights in a portrait. So I hope that you have enjoyed this broadcast. Please continue to click subscribe, to follow me on my social media accounts. All of those things are just fantastically useful to keep broadcasts like this free. And if you know somebody who you think, oh, they might like this, then do share it. I would be very, very grateful. Thank you to everybody for joining me live. Thank you if you're watching on catch up, and thank you for all your support. Until I see you online or in person, take lots of care, won't you? Take care, everybody.